Have you downloaded or listened to episode 8? Here's a clip. Download it and listen to it also this week. Which would have been in 87 or 88, and then really was able to trade and ended up, like I said, I think I ended up at one time I had like 8 recorders, and I sent out the Wrestling Riot, and then it was a bulletin, except in the middle of it we were, you could obtain tapes from me, so that was kind of my gimmick, but people don't. I think it's funny when everyone talks about wrestling now and how, there's just so much you can watch. If you're pissy about anything, you can always watch something on YouTube, either from your childhood or you can start watching something brand new. And New Japan does their own stuff. The British promotions. If you want to follow wrestling, there's going to be one promotion out there that you're going to enjoy these days, and it's so much easier to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, and I started watching late 75, there was 1 hour of wrestling on per week, and we didn't have, videotape recorders or anything. If you were not home in front of that TV at 11 a.m. on Saturday, you missed wrestling. And then as time went on, there was more and more wrestling on TV, and I watched all of it. And then when I first started getting tapes, I could watch wrestling anytime I want, and dadgummit, that's what I did. I mean, it was like heaven for me. I could watch as much as I wanted, and
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's start the party.
We're not going to waste a lot of time today. We're going to get right to the episode. I want to thank everyone for downloading in August. Thank you. Remember, we're live every Tuesday here for STS Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. This week, Wednesday, we got the Big 5-0 episode, so join us Wednesday. And Thursday, we have Who Wants to Be Best Shiznitter Ever? That's right, the champion is the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, beating Matthew on the last episode. You guys at Comic Book Mark BT, you can join me on Twitter. That's where we do everything, all the updates, all the plugs. Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk Facebook group. That's right. Hey, you can join it. You got to ask. You join it. We ask you 3 questions. You be an ass. We kick you out. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher. If you listen to us on iTunes, get on there and give us a positive review. I want to thank Suplex City Limits, Creative Control, and Keeping It 100. That's my 3 favorite podcasts that we're listening to right now, and they're always giving us a big shout out. Also, guys, at the end of this program, when me and Conrad get done, I end it as I usually end it, but there's a little snippet at the very end, so stay to the very end of the episode. No further BS, let's get on with it. Today, I'm going to bring him in from the green room. I got some milk and cookies and beer, and, well, there's some weed right underneath if you're into that, Conrad. I want to bring Conrad Thompson over from the green room. Welcome to Shooting the Shiznit.
Man, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate you guys bringing me on and let me talk a little wrestling with you.
Oh, man, we're excited about having you. What I do on Shooting the Shiznit is either I bring someone I've been knowing for, in the wrestling business for 20, 30 years, and we just sit around and talk the shit, or I bring someone that I've never met that I find interesting, and believe it or not, I find you interesting, Conrad.
Well, no surprise to me. I'm the most interesting man in Alabama.
Oh, no, Alabama. So I'm going to ask you first to put over all of your stuff. Where can we listen to the podcast? Where can we get you on Twitter, Facebook? I want you to put over everything before we get started because I always forget by the end.
I'm at Hey It's Conrad on Twitter, and you can catch our shows at MLWRadio.com every Monday and Friday. Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and What Happened When Monday with Tony Schiavone.
All right, so in the podcast business, I started this podcast years ago, quit, came back after about 4 or 5 years later, but in the podcasting for the last few years, all I've been hearing is your name. And it seems like you're one of the luckiest guys in the world. And when it comes to the podcast, because you had the Ric Flair show. Was that your first show, the Ric Flair show? Because I remember that's when I started hearing your name.
Yeah, Woo Nation from Play.it back in 2014, 15 was the very first podcast. And then from there, we added the Ric Flair show. Once the CBS deal ended, we went independent and called it the Ric Flair show. And eventually Rick kind of grew tired of that, and I branched out and did a WWF podcast with Bruce Pritchard and now a WCW podcast with Tony Schiavone.
And you got, I mean, of all the people in the world, tell us the story. How did you and Ric Flair get connected? What was the connection there?
Well, I decided to buy a Ric Flair robe on eBay, and once I got the robe, I wanted to display it with a belt. I wanted one of the old big gold belts. I did some research and found that the very best replica was made by a guy named Dave Milliken out of Tennessee.
Right.
Friended Dave. Dave introduced me to his friend, Mark James. Mark James writes books, and at the time was working on a book with Jim Cornette. So I met Jim Cornette, who introduced me to J.J. Dillon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually, I found my way to meet Nature Boy Ric Flair.
And, it looks like you guys just become friends, and boom, he trusted you to help him with the podcast.
Well, he knew that I had been doing radio commercials for my mortgage company for years and years. He knew I was a big fan of wrestling and himself, and he knew I could talk about sports. So he wanted to talk about wrestling and sports, and he knew he could trust me to make him look good, and he just wanted me to sit in for the very first episode and just ask fan questions. It was really just to get him comfortable because he felt like he needed somebody to bounce ideas off of. He didn't just want it to be him and a microphone. So I sat with him. The first episode went well. CBS dug it. They asked me to come back, and we were off to the races.
Do you think, I mean, you get the reputation with all the people that you deal with, and I've been known to be this way too, and I like it about it, that, you know, you just really don't, I guess the best way to say is you just really don't mark out for these guys. You're not going to take shit from them, and you're going to ask the real questions. Do you think that what gets you the respect from those guys, and I know it's what gets you respect from the listeners?
Man, we're just trying to put on an entertaining show. You know, if I knew a different way to put on an entertaining show, I'd be doing that. I feel like as a wrestling fan, people are tired of people towing the party line. They just want people to just shoot with them and be honest and be forthright. And so I kind of push my buddies, because at this point, that's where we are with both Tony and Bruce. They know that I'm not trying to make them look bad. They know that I'm trying to put on an entertaining show and create a product that people are interested in listening to. And so far, people are digging it. So we'll probably keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy both versions there. I'm not... I don't listen to Tony's as much, but I do listen to snippets of both of them. I find myself really wanting to hear, like sometimes I'll get on YouTube and just listen to pieces of each show to see what Bruce said about something. But, I mean, you've landed this job. Now, you can tell us whether I'm lying or whether I'm telling the truth here, but the research I could do, it looks like some of your episodes are getting ungodly numbers. We're talking... I looked at the ratings of you guys, and when I look at the ratings of you guys, you're stuck in there with a bunch of other, you know, famous people that do podcasts, and then all of a sudden you guys are ranked 9, 10, and we're talking in the, you know, I read somewhere one of them was 700 and something downloads, the TNA version, 700,000 one episode, and then read something there where we're looking, you know, you guys are getting 1 million downloads per episode. Is that something that's going to be feasible all the time, or do you think, are you going to get a bigger following? Is that what you guys think?
Well, we're trying to grow the show as big as we can, for sure. But the big thing is that we're trying to focus on the content. We want to make the show as good as possible, and we try not to focus on the downloads as much as we are focusing on putting forth the best show. We feel like that will get us the most downloads. The only strategy that we've deployed to grow the show as far as downloads go is the poll component. We allow our listeners to vote for what they want to hear, and we put it on Twitter at first. We grew our Twitter, and when it felt like we had kind of reached a little bit of a plateau, we pivoted and we moved it over to Facebook. Facebook had recently hit the 2 billion subscriber mark, so we felt like that was a good outlet for the poll, and the show is growing on Facebook now. So, you know, we are actively trying to grow the show, And as far as why the downloads are doing so well, I think a lot of it is because our shows are what I call evergreen, meaning, nobody really wants to talk today about SummerSlam because it's got a little bit of age on it now. It's more than a week old, so it's kind of done. But nobody gets tired of hearing about Survivor Series 1990, and that was 27 years ago. So the difference is really just in creating content that doesn't age, doesn't expire. And if it's already very old, it never gets old, if that makes sense. And that's a little bit of a departure from what everybody else is doing. But as a result, our archives do really, really big downloads. On Bruce's show, we're averaging 970,000 downloads a week. That includes the new episode, but that includes the old episodes as well. So, on a 31-day month, we're hovering somewhere in the 4 million download a month territory.
It's just awesome right there. I congratulate you guys. I know it's a lot of – I do a 30-minute show, and it's a lot of hard work. So I know you guys doing it. And what is your philosophy? See, my philosophy is and I told you this right before we came on. I consider my podcast a supplement. It's a supplement to the big guys, and I want you to take 30 minutes out of your time to listen to mine, along with, listen to your long podcast. And Conan has a long one. Cornette, we got regular podcasts that run more than an hour. So, but I want to give you 30 minutes. I usually give one on Tuesdays, and then we do something special on Thursdays. So I'm giving you a total of about an hour to listen to my voice a week. Why have you guys said, okay, for 3.5 hours, and this is against everything. If you read the actual Podcasting 101, they will tell you that within at one point they said 22 minutes. I think they've decided that after 40-something minutes that people turn off podcasts. Why are you guys different? Because they're not turning off your podcast.
We're not different because we have great content, and I feel like a lot of times people are just talking and they're just kind of wasting time, and so it just becomes two talking heads and background noise. They're talking to hear their own voice, and we don't do that. I put extensive time into the research, so before I click record, I usually have 30 pages or more of notes, and they're organized. It's not just I copy-pasted a bunch of stuff and let's get going. There's a real strategic idea of the way we're trying to build the show, and there's been a lot of preparation put into that before we ever sit down in front of the mics. But I don't think that everybody listens to it at one sitting. I do have the data, and I know that around 61% listen to it in one sitting all the way through. But a lot of our, that other 39%, they're going to enjoy it over time. And I've met a lot of people who will listen to some of it on Monday on their ride to work, and on Monday afternoon on their ride home, and then Tuesday on their ride to work, and then Tuesday afternoon on their ride home. And because sometimes we'll go 2 or 2.5 or 3 hours, our show lends itself to people being able to spend the whole week on it for their commutes. However you listen, as long as you listen, I'm all for it.
Right. I mean, that's, with me, I listen to long podcasts in spurts. Like, I will listen to you guys for 30, my attention span is, and that's another reason 30 minutes, is about 30 minutes. And then I'm wanting to go do something else, so, or listen to someone else talk. So that's what I do, and I've enjoyed, and like I said, I do a lot of the YouTube also. Here's what I love about the show, and it's, I can hear it in your voice when you're reading it, and so I want to ask, how long have you been, because I'll tell you how long I've been. I've been a Wrestling Observer newsletter subscriber since 1986, so that lets you know I'll be 51 this year, so I'm being old, and I've been a subscriber for a long time. How long have you been a subscriber, and at what? And this will give me the second question, too. So how long have you been a subscriber?
1997.
1997. And you take that information that Dave does, and this is what I love about both of those shows. Dave, to me, has always been the guy. And even though, he gets stuff wrong sometimes, we all do, he's always presented something to me as an honest product. I was also at one time, a source for him for Memphis Wrestling, and so that also makes me a big fan of his. But you guys just dissect everything that Dave is, and that's what all the fans really like you doing. And Pritchard, Bruce is pretty much honest with, and I know that he doesn't hate Dave Meltzer, but him and Shivani both come off as, Dave didn't know what he was talking about sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is there a question there?
No, I'm just talking. That's what we do here. We just shoot the shit, man. But that's what.
Listen, I do think people want the detail, and Bruce can provide the detail. Tony, not so much. It was a different position in the company, so I do try to position the show to where a lot of it is, especially on Bruce's show. Here's what the dirt sheet said. Here's what the fans have been led to believe. Now tell us what really happened. And so it does become a little bit of a debate format. And on Tony's show, we do less of that, and it's more just us, shooting the shit about the good old days. And so that's what it becomes, less of a position that Bruce has to defend compared to Tony. So Bruce is constantly, on the defensive for Vince, or so it seems. But he was on the inner circle, so a lot of those ideas were ideas that he helped come up with. So when we attack a Vince idea, we're kind of attacking one of his ideas. Tony has the benefit of being able to say, I don't know, I didn't book this shit. And that's okay, too.
Yeah, I've heard him say that a couple of times. I didn't know what the hell. I just, Meltzer's always been one of those guys that people want to say he didn't know what the hell he was talking about, but 9 out of 10 times everything that he's talking about is going on about behind the scenes kind of thing. So we're going to take just a minute here, and we're going to do a quick commercial, and then we're going to be back with Conrad.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson with First Family Mortgage. Check it out, Wicked.
And I'm the national Ric Flair with First Family Mortgage as well. But you got to get excited about saving people all those dollars. They can limousine ride and jet fly now with that extra cash.
And they can style and profile with a quick 10-minute phone call right now to 425-0105.
That's 425-0105. Woo!
Or 1FMC.com.
Woo, 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 woo.
All right, we're back. We're going to spend another 15 minutes here talking about and talking to Conrad here. Conrad, you guys, not that it's competition if you guys are downloading that much, but you guys do have some competition out there. There's some guys that do damn good podcasts and get good downloads. And I just want to throw out a couple of names and see if you listen to those guys. What do you think of their podcasts and stuff? Guys like Conan, who puts up Keeping It 100.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Conan. I think he has a very different show from us, but it's very enjoyable. I recommend it. It's a lighthearted deal. There's lots of guests. There's lots of music. It's a different feel and vibe, and it's something you can enjoy riding around or just, chilling at your house. I think Conan is one of the more underrated podcasters because he's cool. Brother Love and the Mortgage Guy, we're not that cool. Work hard to entertain you. Conan's cool. Conan could make reading the newspaper cool. Boom.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. It's just, and it's so creative. Doesn't really get, as much credit as people actually know all the stuff he's done. So, Chris Jericho, you listen to Chris?
I have listened to Chris a lot. I think Chris is one of the better interviewers in the business. I think what I like most about Chris is that he takes it seriously and he has lots of follow-up questions. He makes it feel natural, but he does spend the time getting prepared. And I like that he's trying new stuff. I know lots of wrestling fans kind of shy away from his unconventional guest whenever he has someone who's not from wrestling. But I think he's on to something, and he's obviously a guy who's always had his eye outside of the business as well, with the different music and acting and television gigs he's gotten. So I think that genre fits him well. I'm excited for him.
I think he does. And here's the guy that MLW, one of your guys there on the network with you, is Jimmy Cornette.
Cornette is the most interesting man in all of professional wrestling. Cornette could have his own reality show that just had cameras set up all over his house and just followed him around, and it would be entertaining. If they had one of the things I want on the network is just a Jim Cornette feed. Just anywhere Cornette goes, let's do that. Instead of keeping up with the Kardashians, keeping up with Jim Cornette. That is money.
I've known Jimmy for a long time, and everyone says, well, he's trying to work, he's trying to do this. He's been the same person since day one, so that hasn't changed when it comes to Jimmy. So here's something that I thought you guys were crazy for doing. You actually was in my town in St. Louis, and I was working and missed it. But when I first heard what you guys were doing, I said, what the hell? Why is a podcast going on tour? I just never knew you guys could take something with you two guys just sitting down talking and answering questions and could actually draw a crowd. I had people in Philadelphia telling me, and I wasn't at the St. Louis one, so I can't tell you how many people was there. But the Philadelphia one, they're judging anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200. Now, some independent promotions would love to draw 1,200 every time. What do you think? I know it's a little different than what you guys do on it, but you think, what's making you guys be able to draw that amount of people just to come see you two guys sit down and shoot the shit?
You know, man, I'm not exactly sure why our podcast is working the way it is. I just know that people are into it, and I feel like on some level, our really hardcore fans feel like, and this is just me freestyling a guess here,
right?
Giving me hundreds of hours of free entertainment. If you come to my town, I'm going to pay some dollars out of my paycheck to come support you guys and tell you how much I appreciate all the free hours of content I've gotten. That's my only guess, but we do work hard at it. We try to make the shows interactive. We try to give people a question and answer section. We also tell some stories that we can't tell on the podcast, and we try to make it sort of specific to the market. So if big stuff or big angles and big performers have been from that area, we're going to go ahead and cover those in as much detail as we can, but really trying to not get so granular with the detail as we are sticking with the funny slapstick stuff. And some nuggets that, we just couldn't share, like who is Bruce's favorite McMahon to smoke weed with? Or, well, I should probably not share any other stories, but we've got a couple of staples as we make these tours of things that we know, man, we just can't put this on tape and push it out there.
So someone's listening to this right now, you guys. Remember, they'll answer questions that they're not going to put on the... Is there anything that you guys have been asked, or Bruce has been asked, that he says, I can't tell you about that?
Well, the only thing we know we're not going to talk about is the Ring Boy scandal from the early 90s. We're just going to steer clear of that one. There's no winning that one, so we're going to stay away from that. But everything else is pretty much game, We're ready to talk about whatever the people want to talk about.
Awesome. So what's your next gig there? Go ahead and put that over to everybody.
Well, we're going to be in Los Angeles on September 23rd at the Regent Theater. We'd love to have you down. It's in downtown L.A. It should be a great time. Unusual time for us, though. We're doing it on Saturday night, so it's the Saturday before the pay-per-view. So if you're going to be in town to check out the pay-per-view the next day, make it a wrestling weekend. Come spend the evening with Bruce and I. We've got a couple of guests from Hollywood and a couple of guests from wrestling already lined up. It ought to be a fun show filled with live guests, surprises, and there's no telling what type of question and answer segment we're going to have in California.
Awesome. So you, Flair, Tony Schiavone, Bruce Pritchard. Here's what I could always think about. What is, and we're going to start with Flair first. What is the one topic you guys on your podcast that you talked about that kind of shocked you that he was so open about, or that he would talk about?
Flair didn't pull any punches. He talked about everything. I was really impressed that we were able to get so many of the old rivals on the phone. He had a falling out with Mick Foley once upon a time, and he was a guest. He had a huge feud with Eric Bischoff, and he was a guest. It felt like eventually we would have been able to work our way around to Shane Douglas or Jim Herd, but people would have been interested in that. People love the controversy. That's an old Bischoff saying for you. Controversy creates cash, and Flair was no stranger to it. He wouldn't shy away from it, and I thought it made for an entertaining show.
What about Bruce? What's the one thing you and Bruce talked about that after you got through with the episode, you said, damn, I can't believe we talked about that?
Man, that's hard to say. There's been a lot that I was shocked that we were able to cover in such detail, but I never thought he would tell the firing story. And when he agreed to do the firing story as a bonus show, I was still worried, how much would he really share? And I thought, by and large, he shared a lot of detail. So, but the story of Bruce being fired in 2008, for sure, is a story that I never imagined we'd cover.
Awesome. What about Shivani? Like you said, Shivani's not confrontational, and we get a little bit of a different show there. What is one thing that Shivani's revealed that that you didn't expect to happen?
No doubt about it, man. I never imagined we'd be talking about Klondike Bill like we have. That guy has become a legend on our show, and I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing. But either way, we had a good time with him, and yeah, all things Klondike Bill. He never ceases to amaze me.
Wow. Okay. Bruce Pritchard has revealed everything there is to reveal. Now, one of those stories that our listening audience may not get or hasn't heard, that I find that every time we hear something about it, people are saying, "What the hell are they talking about?" And it's all those that I think has helped you guys get popular is those inside jokes that all of a sudden you got a T-shirt, you got something going on. But, I grew up in the Memphis area. Every Saturday morning was Memphis Wrestling, 90-minute show, and Jerry Jarrett was a big part of it. Tell us, people, we got like 6 minutes. Tell us, what the hell is the Jerry Jarrett chicken salad story?
Well, it's from our steroid episode, and specifically we're telling a story about how Bruce was over at Vince's house at a booking meeting, and Jerry Jarrett was invited, so he's there. And as they're sitting around, kind of working through the territory of what TV is going to look like over the next several weeks, Bruce has a conversation with the help there, I guess is what Vince would call him, his chef. Who's going to prepare lunch for everyone, and the chef takes everyone's order, and they get around to Jerry, and he orders chicken salad, but in the process, feels like he needs to remind the chef how to make chicken salad, and he shares his recipe, and it's grown into being a pretty big deal on the program.
Now, what is it? What makes his chicken salad so good, Conrad?
Well, it's not my chicken salad recipe, so I'm going to have to say, you're just going to need to listen to the episode.
All right. Is there anything else? We're winding down here. Anything else you want to plug? Tell the listeners of Shooting the Shiznit they need to listen to. This would be a great question to end everything up here. And what would be, if you had to pick, 3 good episodes of you and Bruce that people would go out to grab and listen to, what would be the 3 episodes you'd highly recommend?
The TNA episode, to me, is one of the very best episodes we've ever done. There's lots of candor in there, lots of inside baseball stuff about the business, just the crazy way that company was ran. I really recommend that one. And I enjoyed the WWE CW episode. I feel like it's one of our more underrated shows. And the Jim Cornette episode is pretty doggone hilarious. You learn about a pet, George the Rat, which is maybe one of the greatest stories in the history of the show.
I have to highly agree with you there. I had to go out of my way to listen to that one. So, hey, Conrad, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Good luck. Keep doing it. If you guys are ever back in St. Louis, I'm going to come see you guys and shake your hand. I enjoy the show, and I know a lot of my listeners are enjoying it too. Those numbers are phenomenal. And me and the chugging along here, I just got lucky, and got around 300K in 4 or 5 months. So you guys are just blowing me away within a couple of hours. But keep up the good work. We appreciate you being on. And I want to thank everyone for listening to Shoot the Shiznit with Conrad. You guys be back here next week, same bad time, same bad channel, for the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Down by then, yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, I thought that would be something. I love the way you guys. I said that on the show, but because I've always been, observer reader and like the idea that's what made us, I guess, the fandom, and where you got 2 or 3 guys complaining about something Meltzer said, or you not really complain, you just, well, did you agree with that? Do you agree with that? But, I mean, it's so interesting for you to get behind the scenes with Bruce kind of thing. He was there. Someone said to me, you guys have critics, so you're going to have people that say, who the hell wants to listen to Bruce Pritchard? What has Bruce Pritchard done? And I said, well, just listen to the show. I mean, that's my answer,
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I would put our podcast up against any other. I mean, when somebody wants to know what has Bruce Pritchard done, you could ask that about anybody. I mean, who wants to hear what Raven has to say? Who wants to hear what Jericho has to say? I mean, what else is there for us to hear from Jim Cornette we haven't already heard before? I mean, you could say that about anybody, but yet those same people will watch 3 hours of Raw every Monday night. I mean, it kind of is what it is.
I know. I feel the same way. I think that, too. Why the hell someone want to listen to me for 30 minutes? But, hey, we got people listening, so that's a good thing. Hey, man, have a good night. It's a pleasure talking to you. If you take my idea to court, yell at me. I want some kind of commission or something.
Man, I don't have time to do another podcast. I look forward to hearing you cover that.
All right. Have a good night, man. Thanks a lot. I will let you know when it comes out. It's probably going to be this Tuesday. I appreciate anything you say, retweets, whatever you can do to help me out.
No problem. Thanks, man.